Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, May 11th, 2026 edition of Douglas Now Live. I'm Robert Preston Jr. here in the Douglas Now Live studios on West Walker Street. And I say it is Monday, May 11th. It will be for about 2.5 more minutes, according to my clock here. I don't like to do these shows as late as I have been doing them here lately, but there have been a few things that have necessitated that. Hopefully at the end of this week, these types of distractions will be over with and we can return to a more normal schedule. I got a couple of interesting things I think I want to talk about. But before I do that, I want to give a sports roundup. Not that sports is not interesting, but our sports stories don't always get the most readership, but sports is important. And I've told you why I think sports is so important, because on the sports page, we talk about people's successes, whereas many times on the front page, we talk about people's failures. And here in Douglas, of course, we do not have a professional team. We have high school teams and college teams. So not only are we talking about people's successes, we're also talking about young people's successes. And I think that's extremely important. Now, what has happened here since last we met is that our sports seasons are not completely over with. We've got a little bit still going on, but for the most part, our season's wrapped up. South Georgia State College baseball finished, South Georgia State College softball finished, and Coffee High baseball finished. Now, what I want to do here, and I've got Peyton Bryant's picture here, played baseball at South Georgia College, South Georgia State College, has had a good career, former Coffee Trojan. What I want to do here is real quickly go over the some of the postseason awards that our South Georgia State College athletes have received, and I want to do a quick wrap up on some of their games. But first of all, Caleb Allen, a pitcher, left-handed pitcher, named to the GCAA All-Tournament team. And before we go any further, let me go ahead and wrap this up. That the Hawks finished second. They were playing for a championship. Remember, we were on championship watch, and hopefully we're going to have another championship watch before this school year is over with. But we were on championship watch, and the Hawks had an opportunity to win a third GCAA championship this year. The soccer team won the title back in October. The basketball team won it a couple of months ago and then went on to the national tournament. The baseball team had an opportunity to win a third one and lost game one in the ninth inning, and then lost the second game in extra innings. So it was a hard fought battle. Georgia Highlands, who we played, they were a really good team. They won 43-44 ball games, something like that this year. They were pretty much at the top of the conference the whole season. And but we proved to be worthy opponents. And look, we can go through all the stuff, all the positives that come from something like this, and nobody really wants to hear it. Nobody cares. Right. We didn't win, and everybody's upset, and I understand that, and I get that, but still, we had a really good season. We won a lot of ball games, got off to a slow start, had to deal with some injuries, but then we were able to figure it out. And one of the things I'm going to mention here in just a minute, it's kind of interesting how Coach Timothy and his staff solved a few of these problems. But again, baseball comes down to pitching. Right, and we had some pitching problems. We lost a couple of players, a couple of really good pitchers to injuries early in the season, and then we had to scrap together a staff as best we could, and we hit a stride at the end of the season. And it's a baseball cliche that you get hot at the right time, and we did, and we turned that into a good run through the tournament and had an opportunity to win. So, and the frustrating part about it. And I know Coach Timothy's probably played this over in his mind 1,000 times, and everybody else has too. But what happens with baseball, there's another step between the end of the season and the national tournament, right? So you've got to win the district tournament, and you play the team that wins the junior college conference up in Tennessee. I think it's the Athletic Association of Community Colleges of Tennessee, or something like that. Tennessee Athletic Association Community College. Anyway, and what they do is they alternate one year to the next. So one year, the Tennessee team hosts, one year the Georgia team hosts. This was the year that Georgia would host. So if we could have won the tournament, then we would be hosting. As it turns out, it's Walter State. Walter State and Columbia State were playing for the Tennessee championship, and it usually comes down to those two teams. Walter State's one of the best junior college teams in the country. But we would have hosted Walter State down here, and that would have been a big deal. So I know that everybody's kicking themselves all the way around. And again, it's worth mentioning that was what was on the line. But still, the Hawks had a really good season. And it was a lot of fun to watch them and a lot of fun to follow them. Peyton Bryant was on the all-tournament team. Again, you got his picture right here. And listen, Peyton finished the season really strong. He had some injuries as well early in the year and didn't play as much as he wanted to early on. But he put together an all-conference caliber second half of the season. If he had played the way that he did, the last month and a half or so of the season, no doubt he would have been an all-conference player. But he's got that kind of talent. He got his injuries rehabbed, and he came on and played really, really well. And I'm not sure what Peyton's plans are for the future, if he's going to continue playing or if he's going to concentrate on the studies. My guess is he continues playing. Hayden Gimrick, he was a 2026 first team all-conference closer, but if you paid attention, we talked about this, Hayden made the all-tournament team as a starter. So he began the season as the Hawks closer and did a really good job, but toward the end of the season here, the last few weeks, they converted him, if you will, to a starter and ran him out there. And he had some really big performances. In fact, I believe that he beat Georgia Highlands with a complete game to put South Georgia into the championship game. So he's got 2 postseason awards, an all-conference award as a closer, first team all-conference, and then he had an all-tournament nod as a starter. So that shows you the kind of player he is and the versatility that he has. Jesse Brown, first team infielder, all-conference infield. Jesse, I believe, is from up around Virginia. Ended up down here at South Georgia, and he's a sophomore. Played 2 really good years. He hit 9 home runs in the regular season, a couple of postseason home runs as well. Played third base, some first base when needed, but primarily a third baseman. And if you play a corner infield position, you're going to have to have some power. So we've got Hayden here again. I'm looking on my computer screen, but Hayden here as an all-tournament team. Danny Grant, first team all-conference outfielder. Again, if you followed our stories, we talked about Danny quite a bit. A very talented player, played really well. We have a softball player, GCAA second team infield, all conference, Cambry Isaacson. And it's kind of one of the things that's tough as a reporter, right, who covers these teams is, and it seems, basketball, you only got 5 players on the court, so you're going to talk about the same players over and over. Baseball, you have a relatively small number of players on the field, but the thing about it is you play offense and defense, right? And that's the same thing with basketball. So it's not like football where you've got more players, but you can substitute more, and then you have a different group usually playing offense and a different group playing defense. So you may have 30 or 35 players going in and out that get some playing time. So there's an opportunity to talk about other players, all right? But with baseball, softball, basketball, a lot of times you're talking about the same players over and over and over. It can get a little bit repetitive. You got to try to figure out a way to make it interesting. If you read our softball stories, and we did a few of them, we talked about Cambry Isaacson quite a bit. All right. She was mentioned several times, and with good reason. A very talented player. We also had Jessica Joyner, second team all-conference outfielder. Jessica was mentioned quite a bit. She got some big hits for the Hawks. Going back to baseball, Tanner Langley, Gold Glove outfielder, conference Gold Glove outfielder, and we talked about him quite a bit too. He had some power. He hit some home runs. Obviously did well defensively, but also hit the ball pretty well as well. Bryce Marchman, we talked about Marchman a good bit. All right, again, if you read our stories, he was a name that kept popping up. He was a second team outfielder, but also a good hitter and hit some home runs and had a lot of extra base hits for Coach Timothy. Gold Glove pitcher Luke Smith, he had some big outings as well for the Hawks. So, one of those pitchers who did a really good job. And a young man I had the opportunity to meet last week, Stephen Tavares. I actually met him at Chick-fil-A. He was a second team all-conference infielder. And we're looking at defense here, but Stephen led the Hawks in home runs. He hit 12 regular season home runs. I know he hit at least one in the postseason. So he was big on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. And I saw him in Chick-fil-A. I walked up and I said, look, I don't like to talk to people unannounced, but he was sitting there eating, and I wanted to meet him because I've written about him quite a bit. All right. And he was an extremely nice and polite young man. We had a good conversation. He had a buddy eating with him, and it was good to be able to talk to him. And again, let him know that people are paying attention, and that's what these kids need to know, is that when they're out here playing, they're not playing in anonymity. We do our best to try to get their names out. On the all-tournament team, also Caleb Allen, left-handed pitcher, again, did a really good job in the tournament. And Jesse Brown, again, also can't say enough about him and how he played and what he did. So, again, we got Peyton up here because he's a local kid. And I've known Peyton, followed him through middle school, through high school, and I really like Peyton, and I'm glad that he had a good career. I wish he would have been able to get the season off a little bit to a little bit of a better start, but again, you can't always help injuries. And I remember hearing people say a long time ago, if you're an athlete, it's not a matter of if you get injured, but when, and then how you come back. And Peyton did have some injuries earlier in the season, but you talk about coming back. He absolutely came back, and came back in a very, very big way. So what else happened in the world of sports? Well, Coffee High School's baseball season ended on Friday night, lost a doubleheader to the Brunswick Pirates, and the wheels kind of came off. But listen, the things that team accomplished, it was a solid season. All right. We went into the playoffs as the number 3 seed. And again, we had to get a big sweep at the end of the region schedule in order to get the 3 seed. It was going to be us or veterans. One of us was going to be 3. One of us were going to be 4. If you remember, we won all 3 games to finish the season out and clinch the 3rd seed. We had to travel for the first round and absolutely hit it out of the park, literally and figuratively, with a big first round win. And what that did was enabled us to host a second round playoff series again here against South Paulding. We won that series on Friday night. We swept the doubleheader. So we won 4 in a row. Gavin McElroy won 3 of those 4 games. So it was a pretty phenomenal run for us. And then Brunswick's a really good team. All right. And I don't want to say that we didn't have a chance to beat them, because that's not the case at all, but we had to play really, really well and had to play flawlessly in order to win them, to win those 2 games. And we did not. We did not play flawlessly, but we still had an absolutely phenomenal season. And I say this a lot, but it's fun to follow these teams. It's fun to watch them play. It's fun to go with the ups and downs and to see how they react when bad things happen, because there were some tough moments for the Trojans, but they came back. They won when they needed to, won over 20 games, and had a really good season, one of the best seasons we've had in a long time. And I will say this, we've had some seasons here in the last few years where we've won more games. But if you want to measure your success, you look at what you did in the postseason. And we made as good of a postseason run this year as we've had in a long time. I think that says a lot for our players. It says a lot for our parents. And it also says a lot for our coaching staff. Remember, this is Coach Grove's second year here. So if you can get a home playoff series in baseball, you've done something. That is not an insignificant accomplishment. And then not only did we get that, but we won that home playoff series. So that was pretty neat. So again, it was a lot of fun following the Trojans. SGSC softball, we had a couple of local kids there. They had a little bit of a rough season. I know it didn't turn out the way that they wanted to, but they still made it to the postseason and played after the regular season ended, and had some opportunities there. So again, and listen, I enjoy watching college softball particularly when we get toward the end of the year. And you've got the Women's College World Series, the playoffs, right now the conference championships. It's a lot different than baseball in that everything is compressed. The field is smaller. The action happens quicker. It's a fast game. And the thing that's neat about softball is that the girls show emotion. You can't do that in baseball. If you strike somebody out and the pitcher carries on a little bit, somebody's getting hit next, right? You just got one of your batters hit, and you can't show emotion. It's almost as though you can't have fun playing baseball, right? That's changing a little bit, but still that culture exists with baseball, that you don't celebrate, you don't show emotion, that kind of thing. But they do in softball, and you can see these girls, they're having fun. They make a good play, they go crazy. All right, they enjoy themselves when they're out on the field, and it's fun to watch. So again, same thing, softball. It was neat to keep up with them. So what do we have left? We do have one baseball team remaining, and they will play in Douglas this weekend. In fact, they're going to get home field advantage through the playoffs up until we get to the state championship game. If they go that far, that game will be played on a neutral field. And of course, I'm talking about the CCA Patriots. Playoffs began for GIAA last weekend because CCA was the number 1 seed. They got a first round bye. So they got a week off. They were supposed to play Valwood late last week. That game got rained out. They did not make it up. So they've had some time, almost 2 weeks really by the time they take the field to rest and recover. And I will say this. I'm glad they didn't try to reschedule that Valwood game. That game made me nervous. But if they were going to play it, they needed to play it that day, which was last Thursday. Go ahead and play it, get it over with, and then let everybody rest up. I'm glad that they didn't make it up. I'm glad that they just let that one ride and give our kids some extra rest. So what's the schedule for this weekend? We're playing First Presbyterian Christian Academy. They're out of Hinesville. We have played them quite a bit. We are not strangers to that team at all. They're in our region. So we play them in all sports. We played a doubleheader on the 19th of March. We played that here, I do believe. We won game 1, 15-0. We won game 2, 10-0. And then about a week or so later, we came back and played them over in their place on the 28th of March, and we won 17-2. So I believe we're going to be favored to win that series. Now, I do not know what Coach Jeremy Corum is going to do, but I can just about tell you with 100% certainty that Blake Bryant is going to pitch one of those games. Right, he's probably going to have Blake, I would assume, pitching the first game and Thomas Gentry pitching the second. There's some validity, I think, to the strategy of not putting your number 1 starter out for game 1, but most teams do that anyway. We did that over at Coffee High this year. I would imagine we're going to do the same thing. I like that. Go ahead and run your best guy out there and try to get that first win, because if you can win that first game, you have a little bit of breathing room. But the format will be the same. They're going to play 2 games this coming Friday. Of course, if there's a sweep, series is over with. If they need to play a third game, if the two teams split, they will play that on Friday. So that's going to take place this weekend here at Patriot Field. And let me see if I can get a time for that. If I have that here, I did not write a time down if and I don't have a time. Once we have that, I will announce that so everyone will know. But Friday the 15th, and then on the 16th, if needed, we'll play First Presbyterian. So again, I've talked about how special this baseball season is with what is happening at CCA and with Blake Bryant committed to Clemson. Draft projections, depending on what you read and what you look at, anywhere from the first round to the third round. There's some that put him farther out than that, but most of the pundits tend to think that it's going to be, second to third round. But we have seen some first round projections as well. The baseball draft is a couple of months away, but Blake has the opportunity, or the chance, maybe is a better way to put it, to be the highest drafted baseball player we've ever had out of Coffee County. All right. The individual who has that right now is Ricardo Ingram. He was drafted in the fourth round, but you got to keep in mind too that Ricardo was drafted out of college. He was drafted out of Georgia Tech. We've not had anyone drafted close to this high out of high school. So Blake is really into some rarefied air. He's one of the best pitchers in the state, and you've got the opportunity to see that this weekend. Now, we should be favored against First Presbyterian, and in fact, we should be favored to go through and run the table. In order to win the state championship, we got to win 6 more games. That's what it's going to take. There's 4 rounds to the GIAA playoffs. We got a first round bye, so we have 3 rounds that we've got to play. So we got to win 6 more games. But if you want to watch some really good baseball, want to watch one of the best pitchers in the state on the mound this weekend, you got a doubleheader Friday night at Patriot Field. Again, we'll let you know what time that is once I get that information related to me. So we're winding down with the school year. A couple of weeks left. Most of our sports are over with, but not completely. And hopefully CCA is going to play beyond the end of the school year. That's what happens when you make a deep playoff run. So, of course, we will be following them as they play as well. Let's take a break. I want to come back and talk about Coffee High School. And then I have a story, an interesting story about President John Kennedy. I think it's interesting anyway, that relates to the Preston family. So I call this a John Kennedy story from the Preston Family Archives. We'll be back in just a second.
I'm Vernon Jones. I'm running for Secretary of State of Georgia because, like you, I believe our elections should be fair, secure, and transparent. Public trust must be restored. I stood with President Trump and MAGA when it mattered and pushed to stop the steal. The Vernon Jones plan is to clean up the voter rolls, make sure only U.S. citizens can vote, implement hand-marked paper ballots, and no more QR codes. I've actually run a government and built a small business too. I'll streamline the process, cut unnecessary red tape, and make it easier for people to work, build businesses, and succeed. I'm not a show horse, I'm a workhorse. I'll get the job done. I'm Vernon Jones, and I'll fight for you.
When someone is injured in an accident, they need 3 things: answers, a plan, and a legal team they can trust. That's what you get at the law office of Bruce Edwards in Douglas, along with a healthy dose of old school toughness and modern strategy to boot. We are here to help. Give us a call and let us work for you. Here's one of those stories that that I put up a little earlier today. This is a picture of Coffee High School. The story is about Coffee High School. And I wasn't sure exactly how this would go. And, education is always a hot button issue one way or the other. But this is one of those rare stories where very few people commented on social media, but a lot of people read the story. So there was only one comment on social media. We had 3 shares. We did have 34 likes. So you would think, with it being largely ignored on social media, that people didn't read it. But that is not the case. And I'm talking about the story regarding Coffee High School being named an AP Access and Support School, as well as an AP STEM school. Now, that headline has a lot of acronyms and a lot of education jargon in it, and it's one of those things that can get lost in translation. However, over 4,000 people have read that story. So it kind of makes me wonder who picked it up, if it was folks from out of Coffee County. You never know where these stories travel. But yeah, a lot of people read the story, but very few people commented on it. So why is it a big deal? This is what the story reads. State School Superintendent Richard Woods has named 316 advanced placement, that's the AP part of our acronyms, honor schools from 110 school districts for 2026. And Coffee High School was one of those. It was named an AP Access and Support School and an AP STEM School. AP Access and Support Schools are those with at least 30% of AP exams taken by students who identified as African American and or Hispanic, with a minimum of 16 students, and 30% of all AP exams earning scores of 3 or higher. At least 25 exams must be administered. AP STEM schools are schools that administer at least 5 exams in each of 4 separate AP STEM courses, those being math, science, and computer science, and a minimum of 25 total exams administered. We have a quote here from Superintendent Woods. We're not going to read that. AP exams are administered by the College Board, which also administers the SAT. AP courses are one of several ways Georgia students can access college-level learning at the high school level. Students who receive a 3, 4, or 5 on an AP exam may receive college credit. The Georgia Department of Education began recognizing AP honor schools in 2008. So, Coffee High School. I do not think it's a stretch to say that this is a fairly prestigious designation, 2 designations that Coffee High has received here. But again, education is a little not controversial, but it's an emotional topic that generates a lot of interest, a lot of comments, some good, some bad, a lot of feedback one way or the other. But this is one of those positive stories because no matter how you look at it, I think this is a positive story for our school system, of course, and it shows that we are headed in the right direction with regard to our instruction and with our programs at Coffee High School. Now, you know, we got a change of leadership coming up here in a few weeks. Dr. Morris Lease has retired or is retiring. Lee Mobley has been named superintendent. He's an assistant superintendent now. And Lee is a very capable leader and a very capable educator. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen under his leadership. But this is a pretty good honor to receive here at the end of Dr. Lee's tenure, and then headed in to Mr. Mobley. So congratulations to Coffee High School, to all the faculty and support staff for helping the school get this designation, and of course to the students for doing all the work and making the grades. So without them, it's none of this stuff would happen. So I want to tell a story about President John Kennedy. Now, this is not really related to anything that we've talked about here lately. Those of you who have listened to me when I used to do coffee break here immediately to my right in the tree studio know that I enjoy presidential history. All right. It's one of my favorite topics. Anything about any president, incredibly fascinating. All right. I wouldn't say so much that I'm an amateur presidential historian. I wouldn't go that far. More of a presidential hobbyist, if you will. But when you dig into the presidents, no matter how early or how late, no matter how good, no matter how bad, no matter what time period, there are some incredibly fascinating facts. And I've always wanted to meet a president, a sitting president or a former president. I have never done that. That's one of the things I would like to do. I kick myself quite regularly for not going up to Plains and sitting in on President Jimmy Carter's Sunday school class when he taught his class, when it was open to the public and you could go sit in and listen to listen to President Carter, former President Carter, teach Sunday school. I always wanted to do that, and yet I never did. I never took the opportunity, and I missed out on that, and that's something that that bothers me. But any president, a current president or former president, I would love to meet. So what does this have to do with President Kennedy? Well, the last couple of days, we've been talking about some of our family history, my grandfather and his brothers, and there were 6 children in my grandfather's family. He had 5 siblings. I believe he had 1 sister and 5 brothers. And one of my brothers, and Brian, my cousin Brian, who was on the school board, may watch this. Brian, if I get this wrong, correct it. Okay, correct me here, but I think we're talking about Uncle George here. My grandfather's brother, George, was in the banking business down in Florida, and he lived in West Palm Beach. His house in West Palm, now West Palm in, the 50s and 60s was not exactly the West Palm of today, but his house that he lived in was next to the Kennedy compound. And it was not unusual, if you were at Uncle George's house, to be on the beach and see the Kennedys. All right, now, I'm getting this story from my Uncle Tom, Brian's father. Uncle Tom, who worked with Uncle George down in West Palm Beach until he moved up here in the 80s and began Preston Insurance Agency, which is now Hennessy Insurance. But he was down there with Uncle George, and they would see each other quite a bit. And Uncle Tom says it was not unusual to see the Kennedys on the beach. And now, if I've got this wrong, I didn't make it up. So Uncle Tom told me something along these lines, that there was a tunnel or an underground passageway, if you will, from the beach to the Kennedy compound. So it wasn't like you could see the Kennedys coming, down a boardwalk and across the dunes. And he said that you would be out there on the beach and you would all of a sudden hear something that you didn't hear before. You'd look up, you'd see people coming up, out of that tunnel and playing out in the water and doing whatever. So one day when John Kennedy was president, Uncle Tom was there at Uncle George's, and he was on the beach. It was early one morning. And he looked up, and here comes President Kennedy with a Secret Service detachment. And he's out on the beach. And, they were all neighbors, so they kind of knew each other, but not, you recognize the same people you saw in the area. And Uncle Tom was pretty close to President Kennedy, and he decided to take the opportunity to speak to him and shake his hand. And he stuck his hand out and said, "Good morning, Mr. President. How are you?" And when he stuck his hand out, he said a Secret Service agent jumped between him and the president. And President Kennedy said that it was fine, that, Uncle Tom was no threat. And I believe he shook Uncle Tom's hand and spoke and was very cordial. Then they went about their ways. But trying to retrace some of the family tree this weekend, I thought about that story, and it was pretty cool. And we still have a fascination with President Kennedy. The assassination certainly is a part of that, but then the entire Kennedy family, the legacy that continues until this day, still makes the Kennedy family very, very valid and very much a part of our national discourse. And I thought that was interesting. Again, reliving that story that Uncle Tom told me. I wanted to share it with you. Now, another story from South Florida. This may impress some people more than President Kennedy, but Uncle Tom also went to church with Burt Reynolds. Because Burt Reynolds is from that area, the Jupiter area. And Burt would allow Uncle Tom's Sunday school class to have their Christmas Sunday school social at his house. And they would do it whether Burt was there or not. But one year, Burt Reynolds was there. He came downstairs and met everybody. But for the most part, while the Sunday school party was going on, he stayed upstairs. And this was when he was married to Lonnie Anderson, and she was with him. So they had the Sunday school party on Saturday night. Sunday morning, they are in church. And Burt and Lonnie are sitting in that church. And Uncle Tom was near the aisle, was sitting by the aisle. And when the service ended and they, were started to say the closing prayer, Burt and Lonnie got up to slip out. And Uncle Tom, heard something going on. He looked up and he saw Bert walking down the aisle, and he and Bert made eye contact, and Bert recognized Uncle Tom from the Sunday school party the night before. And he leaned over and whispered, and he says, "Tom, we got to get out of here." And he and Lonnie kept going, and Uncle Tom kind of chuckled. And so when Uncle Tom was in Florida, he shook President Kennedy's hand, had a Sunday school party at Burt Reynolds' house, and then Burt Reynolds spoke to him in church. I think that's pretty cool. That's more than what most people do. I haven't met that level of celebrity in my life. So I've always been very impressed by those two stories, and I thought you might find those interesting. Neat stuff. Let's take a break. We will come back and do what we do when we close all of our shows, which is take a look at our tower cam. We'll see if we can see our 3 house lights / street lights in the background. We'll be back in just a second.
I'm Vernon Jones. I'm running for Secretary of State of Georgia because, like you, I believe our elections should be fair, secure, and transparent. Public trust must be restored. I stood with President Trump and MAGA when it mattered and pushed to stop the steal. The Vernon Jones plan is to clean up the voter rolls, make sure only U.S. citizens can vote, implement hand-marked paper ballots, and no more QR codes. I've actually run a government and built a small business too. I'll streamline the process, cut unnecessary red tape, and make it easier for people to work, build businesses, and succeed. I'm not a show horse, I'm a workhorse. I'll get the job done. I'm Vernon Jones, and I'll fight for you.
A car accident can have serious consequences far beyond the initial crash. Your life and the lives of your loved ones can be turned upside down. Missed work, lost wages, totaled vehicles, and insurance companies that don't want to help. You need a law firm that will fight for you. You've come to the right place. Welcome back. Let's take a look at our tower cam. There are our 3 lights. We're going to have to do one of these things during the day so that we can see something outside other than just the darkness. Again, it's kind of a running joke a little bit that we show this at night, but we do it because the camera is there, and we can take a look at it. I think we're starting to get some of this cool weather behind us. It's going to warm up nicely, maybe to the point of almost getting into that oppressive area where we spend most of our summers. But I tell you, I'm happy. I don't think I have to turn a heater on in my animal room tonight. I think it's warm enough outside. I ran a heater for a couple of hours last night. Probably didn't have to, but I turned it on anyway. But tonight, I think we're going to go without the heaters. And I know you're all worried about that. That is a big concern, that we get to the point where it's warm enough that I don't have to run heaters on snakes. So, yes, we still have snakes. Montgomery loves them. And we still do some snake shows from time to time. But I did the math a couple of days ago. I have had snakes continuously, at least one snake, in my possession for 35 years. 35 years. And we've got one snake that we've had, a ball python that someone gave to me. It was a rescue back in 2005. So 21 years we've had this snake, and the snake's probably 23 years old. And we've done, I don't know how many hundreds of shows with that snake, and how many thousands of kids have held it and touched it and passed it around, and been a pretty good ambassador for the reptile world. They live about 30 or 40 years. So, you know, our ball python is middle-aged and could quite possibly outlive me. But yeah, I'm very concerned about the weather, and I want to make sure that it gets warm enough where we don't have to run heaters. And I know y'all are concerned about that as well. So thank you again for streaming with us tonight. I apologize for the late hour. We've also had a little bit of a slow news week here, or news day to kick off the week. The election is underway. This is the last week of advanced voting. We're going to get you some election numbers out with how many people have voted. It's been slow. Listen, and I mentioned this too. The flex that everybody has is voting. These little voting stickers here, you see these everywhere in November. All right. And everybody wants everybody to know that they voted. I voted. Did you vote? I voted. And there's a little bit of a guilt complex there. You know, we're going to guilt you into voting. But very few people, relatively speaking, vote during primaries. Well, here's the deal. It is extremely important to vote during the primary. All right. It may be more important to vote in the primary than it is in the general election. All right. And that's when people don't vote or less likely to vote. But if you're truly concerned about our political state of affairs, if you're truly concerned about our system of government, if you truly want to flex on voting, and this little sticker here, you vote during the primary. All right? That's when you let your voice be heard within your party. And you choose the candidate who will move on and face opposition from the other party. All right? And also keep in mind that if you want to vote for Dwayne Gillis, just because you live in Coffee County does not mean that you're going to get to do that. Judge Gillis's district, the 19th district, is pretty much more to the east side of Coffee County, not to the west side. I live on the west side, so I did not get to vote for him. I've already voted. I voted the second day of advance voting. But if you truly want to let your voice be heard, if you truly want to flex when it comes to voting, and you want to represent our sticker here, you vote during the primary. It's been a little bit slow at the elections office, so everybody needs to vote. The election is a week. I was about to say a week from tomorrow, but since we're after midnight, it's actually a week from today. But the 19th is the election. So again, 7 days from today. So go vote. Go vote. It is extremely important. Thank you for streaming with us tonight. We appreciate it. We'll be back again in a day or two. Y'all have a wonderful evening. We will see you next time.